Hello dear students, I am Dr.S.V.Tile going to deliver a lecture on environmental awareness. In case of environmental awareness, we will discuss the chapter 4, and from that chapter 4 we have a discussion on the threats to biodiversity. Students, there are several threats which are causes of biodiversity loss. The cause of biodiversity loss are many and varied and oftenly interrelated. The causes of biodiversity loss are varies according to the situation. They varies place to place, they varies condition, and they varies from situation to situation. Basically, the biodiversity loss is happen due to certain losses, certain threats. First of all, the habitat loss. Students, very much important. Habitat loss is very much important regarding biodiversity loss. The second one thing that is man-wildlife conflicts. Third one, poaching of wildlife. And the fourth one that is very important, that is biological invasions. Students, since 3.5 billion years ago, when wildlife began, about 500 million kinds of plants, animals, and microorganisms have made Earth their home. United Nations Convention on Biological Diversity says there are some 13 million species still living on Earth, out of which 1.7 million species have been identified and described. We, however, do not have an exact number because there are many areas of Earth that are biologically unexplored, such as the tropical rainforest, where majority of the living organisms live but are yet to be identified. A few species naturally become extinct over time, and it is believed that during certain periods of geological time, the great number of species have been lost relatively quickly on the scale of thousands of years. Scientists have documented 5 periods of mass extinction since the emergence of life on this planet. It is thought that each of these episodes, during which a large fraction of all species were lost, was caused by a catastrophic natural event on Earth. Growing human population leading to overexploitation of biotic resources and habitat destruction is responsible for today's exceptionally high extinction rate. Many scientists consider this is an sixth extinction episode. Biotic diversity, the richness of life on Earth, is like a common property or resources belonging to the whole human race. Therefore, biodiversity conservation is a major concern worldwide. Conservationists are involved in global efforts to protect biodiversity. We should conserve the rich biodiversity of the earth for the posterity so that in future people can enjoy the richness of earth. In this unit, we will have a discussion on the factors in detail which are mainly causes biodiversity loss. The causes of biodiversity are basically varied according to condition and they are often interrelated. The first one cause of biodiversity loss, that is habitat loss. Basically, habitat refers to the area where species seek food, get shelter, and reproduce. The greatest threat to wild plant and animal species is due to destruction or alteration of their habitat. If an animal's habitat is destroyed or disrupted, it must adapt to the new changes, move elsewhere, or die. When it is forced out of its territory, and if it finds a suitable habitat, there is a possibility that habitat is already in use. Consequently, it must compete with the local population of the same species as well as other animals. The other option is that it must migrate into a marginal habitat where it may succumb to predation, starvation, and disease. Some organisms such as pigeon, house sparrows, rodents like rat and mice, and deer flourish in the modified habitats provided by human activities, but many others do not. Some habitats are more vulnerable to species extinction. These are called fragile habitats. Habitat destruction is recognized today as the most significant threat to global biodiversity and bears responsibility for much of the species loss worldwide. These pictures are shows that there is a very great habitat loss of these deers, and these pictures are also shows there is a very great loss of shelters and the food of wildlife organisms. Felling of forest of land use, that is felling of forest of land use, large scale lodging and small scale patchwork agriculture causes the habitat loss. Shifting cultivation along is believed to be responsible for 70% of deforestation in Africa, 50% of deforestation in Asia, and 35% of forest loss in America. Destruction of mangrove sites for aquaculture, that is also a main cause of habitat loss. Mining and destruction of corals, then conservation of wetlands for land uses, over extraction of timber and fuel wood, human induced burning of habitats, and firing grasslands to improve fodder for cattle, damming of rivers, sanitation and sedimentation of freshwater bodies. These are the certain cause which are mainly responsible for habitat loss. In many countries, there are very few persistent areas left that have not been modified in some way by human intervention. When habitats are not completely destroyed, they are fragmented into smaller patches, creating islands of habitats in a sea of development. Fragmentation exposes species to more light, wind, and temperature effects than are natural, thus affecting the species' survival as food and water resources are lost and few mates remain. In fragmented landscapes, many species soon become isolated from others of their own kind, resulting in inbreeding, loss of genetic diversity, and local extinction. Then the next one thing, that is man-wildlife conflict. In case of threats of biodiversity, that is a very much important thing, the man-wildlife conflict. People use some plants and animal species at a greater rate than the species can replace themselves. These pictures are shows that there is a conflict, human wildlife conflict. That picture also shows that there is a conflict between man and wildlife. Nine of the world's major ocean fisheries are declining because of too much fishing as well as water pollution and habitat destruction. Current lodging rates threaten to eliminate mangrove and many other tree species that takes many years to grow and mature. Sustainable evidence demonstrates that people are contributing to measurable changes in the global climate, threatening the life of wildlife. By burning fossil fuels such as oil, natural gas, coal, and other trees dramatically increase the amount of CO2 in the atmosphere. While scientists do not know the exact effects of increased CO2, they predict that it will lead to higher overall global temperatures, increasing sea levels, and changes in climate patterns. The changed atmospheric condition that results from global warming could create greater numbers of increased intense storms and prolonged droughts. On the other hand, the expected speed of climate changes coupled with the direct loss of natural habitat, may prevent some species from adapting quickly enough. They are likely to become extinct locally or more broadly, and their roles in natural system will be lost forever. That is the man-wildlife conflict. Then the poaching of wildlife, the hunting and export of excessive numbers of certain animal species is another species is important factor leading to dangerous reductions in the numbers of animals and organisms. Basically, there are three main types of hunting: commercial hunting, in which the animals are killed for profit, for sale of their furs, bones, and other parts of bodies. Then subsistence hunting, the killing of animals to provide food for survival. And sport hunting, the killing of animals for recreation. Although subsistence hunting was once a major cause of extinction of some species, it has now declined sharply in most areas. Sport hunting is now closely regulated in most countries. Species are endangered only when protective regulations do not exist or not enforced. On a worldwide basis, commercial hunting threatens a number of large animal species. The jaguar, tiger, snow leopard, and cheetah are hunted for their skins, elephants for their ivory tusks, and rhinoceros for their horns. Single rhino horn, which is a mass of compact hair, is worth as much as $24,000 in the black market. It is used to make handles of ornamental knives in North Yemen and ground into a powder and used in parts of Asia for medical purpose. Especially reducing fever, it is also thought to be an uh, sexual stimulant even though it consists of a substance. Another highly publicized commercial hunt is that of a whale. The whaling industry has generally concentrated its efforts on the large profitable baleen whales which were slaughtered for their blubber and baleen. The bony sieves they filter seawater with. From the blubber, high grade of oil was made for lumps and for lubricating machines. The baleen was whalebone was used to make a corset stays, combs, and similar products. The history of whaling is one of overexploitation followed by abandonment. Then the next thing that is biological invasions. Purposely or accidentally, people often bring non-native species into new areas where the species have few or no natural predators to keep their populations in a check. These invasive species, also called alien, introduced, or exotic species, are considered the most important cause of native biodiversity loss. Invasive or alien species are those species which, when introduced into new area, cause biological invasions. They range from microbes to mammals. Invasive species also cause economic and environmental havoc. Invasive species can also alter fire cycle, nutrient cycling, and hydrology and energy budgets in native ecosystems. The problem of invasive species will rise severely through climate changes. Some examples of invasive species are can be discussed. That is, water pollution. A water plant with a showy purple flower is a native of the Brazil and is now seen as the most important now-since aquatic plant worldwide. It affects water flow, electricity generation, transport, water quality, and indigenous biodiversity. In India, it was introduced in 1886 in Bengal as an ornamental pond plant. Since then, has spread throughout India as an obnoxious aquatic weed covering large area. Fish and rice crops worth millions of rupees are damaged each year at the hands of this weed. Then Congress weed was introduced in India with food grain imported from USA. It reproduces freely from seeds and has spread in neglected areas throughout the country. Then golden apple snail is one of the most devastating invasive alien species. It was imported from Latin America to South Asia in 1980s. Then the mosquitoes in the same arid parts of India has displaced over other flora of the area. It has become an invasive seriously threatening the biodiversity. Okay, then that is these pictures. That picture shows there is a biodiversity loss in India. In India, the red shaded area are the major biodiversity hotspots. Then, in case of conservation of biodiversity, we have to look towards the types of conservation. Conservation basically needs different strategies. They can be species based on, or they can be species based on, or habitat based, or ecosystem based. Some species are given importance at national level while some need treatment at international levels. Most of the conservation is done in situ and ex situ conditions. In this unit, we will discuss the meaning of in situ conservation and ex situ conservation. Basically, in situ conservation means on-site conservation. It is the process of protecting an endangered plant or animal species in its natural habitat, either by protecting or cleaning up the habitat itself, or by defending the species from predators. The benefits to in situ conservation is that it maintains recovering populations in the surroundings where they have developed their distinctive properties. Wildlife conservation is mostly based on in situ conservation. This involves the protection of wildlife habitats. Also significantly large reserves are maintained to enable the target species to exist in the large numbers. The population size must be sufficient to enable the necessary genetic diversity to survive with the population. These are the efforts are taken into in situ conservations. Then ex situ conservation means literally it is a off-site conservation. It is the process of protecting population of an endangered species of plant or animal by removing it from one unsafe and unthreatened habitat and placing it or a part of it under the care of humans. While ex situ conservation is comprised of some of the oldest and best known conservation methods known to human, it also involves newer, sometimes controversial laboratory methods. Ex situ conservation, while helpful in human efforts to sustain and protect our environment, is rarely enough to save a species from extinction. It is to be used as a last resort or as a supplement to in situ conservation because it cannot recreate the habitat as a whole. The entire genetic variations of a species, its symbiotic counterparts, or those elements which over time might help a species adapt to its changing surroundings. Furthermore, ex situ conservation techniques are often costly. Plants and animals living in ex situ breeding grounds have no natural defense to the disease and pest new to the species. These are the things which are the in case of conservation of biodiversity. Thank you.